You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo, and this is my first solo episode. We're going to see how this goes. I'm not doing multiple takes. This is a one-take show only, so I'm just going to let it flow because that's when the juicy stuff comes out. That's when the good things happen. That's when I say words backwards. That's when you get the best of me, I believe. So, and I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about for this episode. I thought about what really stuck out to me right now as a message that people need to hear, or what I feel might need to be heard by a collective of people. And there's a theme that keeps coming up for me over the last couple months, and really has been coming up for a while, off and on, and that's fear. And fear of the unknown, fear of not having enough, fear of other people, fear in general. Fear drives a lot of decisions for people. It's what they use to create or make their decisions. And I really dislike fear. I understand that fear has a place, and there are many different examples that different leaders give about, put fear in the back seat. It's there to protect you, and I definitely agree with that. And I really encourage people when I'm working with them to slow down enough where they can decipher between fear and their intuition. And so today I want to talk about this around the idea of surrendering and trusting that you're exactly where you need to be right now. And so I actually want to walk through some examples for each of the years that I've been in business, because I have been going through this huge lesson of surrendering and trusting. And some of the stories I've shared bits and pieces of through social media, but there are stories that I haven't yet. And I hope that if nothing else, this episode inspires you to lean a little bit more into the unknown in your life, wherever that might be. And I purposefully, if you're watching this on YouTube, I put myself in a different place. I'm still in front of my desk in my office, but I'm in a comfy chair so that I can really relax and just be in the moment, because it's been a long time since I did a solo episode by myself. So here we go. I want to begin with letting you know that when I made the decision to leave my job in end of May 2020, I did not really have a plan. Now, if you know me and you've worked with me or you've been in my energy, you know that when I do events or when I have classes, or I'm a planner, like I am really good at taking a plan and executing on it. And I like to think about all the possible consequences. I like to think through all the details. That's what a good executive assistant does, right? Well, a big part of me transitioning from an EA to my own CEO is letting go of a lot of that planning piece of me and really just going with the flow more. And so all I knew when I had this conversation with my boss, Jesse, at the time, was that in my body, I knew that it was the right thing to do. And what I mean by that is that when I make decisions now, I pause, I get quiet. Sometimes I sit for just a minute. Sometimes I need to sit with it for a couple days or a couple weeks. And usually what a yes is for me feels neutral in my body, meaning I don't really feel anything, which might be kind of hard for you to understand. But if you take a little bit of time right now, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're listening to this podcast, and just pause and ask yourself, do I have any pain in my body anywhere? Does my stomach hurt? For me, a big indicator of a decision that I need to say no to, or an opportunity that I need to say no to, is if my stomach hurts. If it's giving me a bit of pain, a lot of my feelings, a lot of my emotions happen in my gut. And so that's a big tell for me. But when I thought about this move of becoming my own boss, I got excited and I felt light and I didn't have any pain in my body. And so I knew, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Now, if I looked at it from a logical standpoint, and I know there are many people in my audience who are very logical brained people, meaning you would look at your bank account and say, okay, how much money do I have in it? Do I have enough to last me 6 months or a year if I'm not going to make any money? I didn't do that. I looked at my bank account and I said, okay, I need about $5,000. I need exactly, actually, 5,000, just over 100, $5,100 to get by for a month. And so I knew that when I left my job, my end date was July 7th, I believe, or July 10th. And I knew that I had enough money to last me until my September 1 bills. And I didn't think about it any further. I honestly didn't. I said, okay, I have enough to get me by for a month and a half. Let's go. And I started to think about what like baby step do I need to take first. And I also want you to keep in mind that I own a duplex, and I bought this duplex back in 2017, and I live in the top level. So I had already begun to kind of set myself up to have help financially, right? My mortgage at that time, it was $3,600. And I have a tenant downstairs who pays for part of the mortgage, and then I pay for the rest. And I also had a roommate at that time. I also want to share that I had zero savings outside of the money I had that would last me a month and a half. I had zero savings. I had a maxed out credit card, and I had a maxed out personal line of credit. And I had used this personal line of credit to finish this house. So I had no cushion besides that month and a half. And I just want to share that because I think it's really important to state the numbers, talk about it, say it, put it out there. I think especially for women, we've not been encouraged to really be open and transparent. And so we live, a lot of times I find a lot of women in particular live in fear because they just don't know. And so I don't want to contribute to that. I want to be transparent and I want to share my story so that you can really know where I was coming from. So I've been on my own now since technically July 2020. And so that's been about 31, 32 months here almost. And there have only been maybe 5 months where I knew a month in advance that I had the money I needed to pay my bills next month. The other 26 months, I often have not known until the day before the first of my bills start to become due in the month, or 10 days into the month. So we're talking like right now it's April. So like I didn't know until April 10th how I was going to pay the bulk of my bills. That's my experience. Okay. So 26 months out of the 31, 32 that I've been on my own in my own business, most of those I have not known how it's going to happen until the very last minute. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about surrendering and trusting, is living in that unknown space, confronting that fear, confronting that ego, and talking back to it and saying, I know I'm going to be okay. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. And I know that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. And therefore, I will be supported. And that is something I've said to myself countless times. So I want to share an experience that I've had every year, just one experience out of many that have happened each year that have supported and kind of given me that nugget, that knowing of I am supported and I'm on the path that lights up my soul. And so whenever I worry, or whenever, which happens often, whenever I'm stressed out, whenever I'm like, what is happening here, universe? What am I supposed to be doing? I get another breadcrumb. And so the first breadcrumb came when I was, and it hit like September 1st of 2020. So about 2 months out from leaving my job. And I hit this first block where I was like, wow, okay, I'm 5 days out from paying my mortgage, from paying the first set of my bills. I don't have any money in my account. I think I had like $50 to $75 in my account. And I get this message from someone via email. It says, hey, I want to meet with you about coaching. Can we meet tomorrow? And I said, sure, I love to. And at this point, I had started my business called I Love It When, and I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and I'm a consultant for small businesses. Now, I thought that most of my work would be in the real estate world, and it's really not. I've ended up working with holistic healers, writers, a video game company. It's been spread across industries. So I thought that when I left, I would have this full roster of coaching clients that were admin, because that was my niche in the real estate world. And the truth is, a lot of real estate agents will not pay for their admin to get coaching, and admin typically don't have a salary that provides enough where they can afford for coaching on their own. And so this particular person reached out to me, and they were in real estate in San Francisco. And so we met the next day, and I'd maybe had 3 or 4 exploratory calls at that point. I didn't have any clients yet. And we get on the Zoom, And he says, look, before you say anything, before you tell me anything, I just want you to know that I'm in. You don't have to sell me on anything. And I looked at him and I was like, really? And I had spoken to him maybe one other point in my life. He had heard the podcast that I used to do with Jesse from Pickett Street called Finally Clicked, and he heard me on that podcast. So he got a sense of who I was through that. And I said, okay, well, do you have any questions for me? And he said, well, I know that you have a 6-month contract, but if I'm being real, I want you for 12 months. If I'm being really honest, I'd actually like you for 18. And can I pay up front? I think my jaw dropped right there on the Zoom call. I did not know what to say. And somehow I finished the conversation. We decided on a start date, and I called my mom and I just started to cry because yes, I had faith and I hadn't had any notice of what was going to happen or how this was going to be solved. I had no idea. And so this was just the beginning of my journey of learning how to let go of the how and just knowing what I want and letting the how be taken care of by the universe. Now, I call it the universe. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you like. You can call it the unseen. For me, the universe just feels right. It's universal energy. It's universal love. It's what supports us on this planet, I believe. So that was the first kind of heads up that I got that, okay, I am on the right path. I am being supported in what I'm doing. I'm doing something right. And it feels so good. It feels so, so good. So that was in September of 2020. And I'm just sharing one story with you from each year. So in 2021, this is an interesting and fun story. I had decided that around April, I was like, I really, really want to go to Hawaii for my birthday. This makes zero sense, Margaret. These are the conversations I have in my head. This makes zero sense, Margaret. You still have no money in savings. You have no extra cash coming in. And the other thing that happened right when I left my job is within the next month, I started in my first real awesome relationship I've had in my life. Now, I've never been married. I don't have kids. I thought I was destined to be single because I just figured, and I was happy with that. Like I'd gone through my years of being frustrated, angry, sad, lonely. And there were still times when I felt lonely for sure. And I had created such a loving relationship with myself that if I was going to have a partner, it was going to be somebody that added to my life because I already had the love and the care and the passion, the compassion that I needed for myself. I wasn't looking for someone else to fill a void. And so I had started dating somebody, and I told him, I was like, I got to go to Hawaii for my birthday. I just feel called there. I really, it's time for us to have a vacation. It's going to happen. And I didn't know what he would say because sometimes when I say things to people that sound out of reach, I'll get people who say to me, that's not possible. That's cute, Margaret. That's really cute that you want to do that. Or that's really cool that you want to reach for something that far out. And then typically what happens is they watch me on my journey and they watch me get to whatever it was that I was going after. And they start to think to themselves, how did she do that? What did she do? And so my boyfriend knew. He was like, I said, why did you say yes? Like, why did you say, yeah, let's do it? I didn't expect that. And he said, well, I knew that if I said no, you were going to be going to Hawaii and I was going to be left behind. And so I started talking about it with friends, just saying, hey, I really want to do this. If you know of anybody who has a house in Hawaii that I could use either for free or for a really low cost, please let me know because I'm going to figure out how to manifest the money I need to get to Hawaii, to get the ticket, to get the place. I want to go for at least a week. And so I'm talking about it, and I'm talking about it with my friend who lives downstairs, and we're talking. And then in the midst of all this, I drive down to Oregon to visit with a friend of mine and her mom, who also happens to be a real estate agent. And they're both highly intuitive people. And so I wanted to have a meeting with them just to talk about where I was at in my business, where they're at. And it's kind of one of those exploratory meetings. You don't really know what's going to happen or what's going to come of it, but something juicy always happens when you just talk about the possibilities and the opportunities. And so on the way down there, it's about a 6-hour drive. It's a Friday. And if you're from the Pacific Northwest, you know that driving to Oregon on a Friday night can take a very long time due to traffic. And so it was about hour 6 where I was really starting to like, okay, I need to get there. I'm exhausted. And I couldn't listen to the radio anymore. I couldn't listen to podcasts. I turned it all off and I just started singing. And I couldn't get the song Moon River out of my head. So I'm singing Moon River. Like, I don't even know all the words, okay? I sing karaoke sometimes with my dad, and I don't know the words to this song. It just was stuck in my head. And so I finally get there, and it's the next day that we go to a winery, and we're having some wine, and we're sipping on wine. We're having some hors d'oeuvres, and we're just chatting, and we're talking about her mom. It was so my friend's mom, and she had passed away a couple of years ago, and she's sharing with me some stories about her and things that remind her of her mom. And in my head, I am thinking to myself, interesting, I wonder if she liked the song Moon River. And I'm arguing with myself in my head, well, that's silly. I mean, she could have, yeah, absolutely, she could have liked that song, but there's no reason to talk about that right now, Margaret. You listen to her, she's telling you a story. And then I keep saying to myself, but ask her if she likes Moon River. Just ask her if she likes it. Finally, after like the sixth time, I said, okay, I'm so sorry. I just have to ask you this because I keep thinking it. And so it might be a message of some sort. Did your mom love the song Moon River? And she looks at me and she's like, yeah, it was one of her favorite songs. And I literally I think I threw my head in my hands and I was like, all right, thank you so much for that message. And again, that was confirmation for me that I receive messages in all sorts and forms. It could be songs, it could be a poem, it could be food, it could be an image I get in my head. But this is all part of this Hawaii story. So the next day, I'm having dinner at their house before I start to head home. And we're talking about Disney because they love Disney and they go to Disney and they collect lanyards and they're telling me how they do that with their kids and all these things. And one of the other messages that I had been getting time and time again was that I needed to incorporate Mary Poppins into my business somehow. The idea of Mary Poppins and all the things she carries in her bag, and I'm kind of like that myself, is what the message I keep getting, is that when I go to do a workshop with a company or when I'm coaching with people, it's like I have this bag of magic and I pull different things out of it depending on the situation and the people. And so I had known this and I knew that, okay, like I'm going to do something. And I really love the idea of Mary Poppins. And in the middle of our conversation, my friend gets up to go get something for her dad because her dad often watches her little girl. And she comes back with 2 movies and puts them down on the table. And wouldn't you know that the one on top was Mary Poppins? So in my head, I said, okay. Thank you so much for the message. I hear you. And so I drive home that night and I'm talking to my boyfriend and we're talking about Hawaii and I'm starting to look at places on VRBO and just thinking about it. And I'm sitting on my couch when I get home. And while I'm wrapping up a conversation with him, I get a text from my friend downstairs and she says, hey, so I got word that we might be able to use this house for some time on Hawaii. Like, would you want to go together? And I take a look at the link she sent me. And it's a $2.3 million home on the Big Island. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Are you serious? And she says, absolutely. And we can use it for free. And I said, shut up. You can't, this can't be happening. And she said, yes, it's happening. And it happens to be owned by, I forget what their title is, but it's like the CIO of Disney. And I said, you are kidding me right now. You are kidding me. And so this theme of Disney and Mary Poppins, and we went to Hawaii. We went to Hawaii in June, or it was actually July. And so that was like my birthday trip. It was what I envisioned. And it was 10 times better than I even envisioned. There's no way I would have thought about ever being able to possibly rent a $2.3 million home. It was just incredible. It blew my mind. And so again, confirmation that when I think about what I desire and what I want, and I put it out there and I talk about it and I pay attention to the signs, you have no idea what can happen. Okay, so the third example I want to give you is when I started this podcast in June of 2023. So I had been what felt like in some sort of a stagnant, stuck spot for a while. And I'm realizing now, looking back at it and in the midst of it, that really I was being asked to rest. I was being asked to really take the time to recover from burnout. I had been hustling and pushing and creating for so long that I didn't really know how to not do that. I didn't know how to rest, take a nap, go for a walk, and not be producing something that I felt really made me valuable. So a lot of the last couple of years has been me really slowing down and realizing that I always have what I need. And so the only message I had kept getting during this time was that it's time to start a podcast. Start your podcast. Start your podcast. Start your podcast. So I was like, fine, okay. And I got to the point where I had an extra, I think $500 one month, and it gave me the money. That was what I needed to pay for the startup fee, because I knew that if I did this podcast, I did not want to do the production for it. I had done the production before for the podcast I had at my previous job, and it's a lot of work and it didn't bring me joy. And I really didn't want to be the person in charge of that. And I knew I also wanted to just start with 2 podcast episodes a month as well. So I used that $500 to use it for the startup fee for the podcast. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for it after that, because there's a monthly fee that pays for the production. I just knew, okay, I have the money to begin, so let's begin, and we'll let the universe step in and show us how we're going to make the money for the rest of it on a monthly basis. And so I just started. And ever since then, now I've been going for about 7 months, and the money shows up that I need in order to pay for this to be produced monthly. And I'm grateful. And the thing that I love about being a podcast host is that I get introduced to so many cool people. It builds my network. It is definitely a part of me manifesting, because part of manifestation is really interacting with other energies, other people. You, like, every time I meet someone, I have no idea how that's going to impact my journey or how I could impact theirs. And the beauty of that gets me every time. I love it. And so that's my story from 2022. That was the baby step that I took, was just begin. Now for 2023, my example happened with a retreat that I usually put on for admin and real estate. And I've been running this retreat for about 6 years. It was called the Pacific Northwest Operations Retreat. And this year I rebranded it to BU, the Retreat for Admin and Real Estate. I hadn't had it in person since 2019. I really wanted to wait until we were back to a place where I knew it was safe for us to all meet in person. And so I planned the retreat for May 2023, which is next month. And I planned it in Idaho Falls at this gorgeous VRBO. And I had speakers in mind. I was going to do my usual, about 40 to 45 tickets. And I first sold some of the tickets to current BU members. So there's a monthly membership that I run for admin and real estate called BU, the Inner Circle. So they had first access to the tickets, about 6 tickets sold. And then I put it to the public on January 1st. And on that first day, I sold the ticket. And within another month, I'd sold 1 other ticket, but that was it. Now, in previous years, the last time I had put this retreat on, the tickets sold out, all 40, I think it was 43 tickets sold out in 48 hours. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if that would happen again. I also knew that it had been a while since I put a retreat on, so people were doing other things and a lot of things changed during COVID. But I did not expect it to be crickets. I didn't expect to get to the point where I got, which was, okay, I can't put this on the way that I envisioned it. What I envisioned is not possible right now with just 6 to 8 attendees. And so I gave it a deadline. And I said, all right, if I don't have the tickets I need sold by this date, then I have to cancel it. And it just seemed like the next step was canceling it. I didn't see a way to pivot. I didn't see a way to still make it happen. And so I canceled it, and I put a post out on my social media sharing that it was canceled, sharing kind of the story of what had happened and that I was upset, but at the same time, like, this is the next step I need to take. And so I'm taking it. That evening, about 9:30 at night, I got a Facebook message from Tori Mayfield, who's the team leader for the team, the real estate team that rocks out of Federal Way, Washington. And he messaged me and said, hey, Margaret, my wife and I saw your message, saw your post on Facebook, and we want to offer you our VRBO in South Seattle to use for free so that you can pivot and still do this event with these 8 attendees who want to spend time with you, who want this experience. We've seen you put in the work over the years, and I don't want to see you have to cancel this. I know how hard you've worked for this. I was blown away. And so I said, okay, give me 24 hours to think about it. And I checked with the attendees, and most of them were still in. So I said, yes, okay, let's do this. And so I was able to pivot and still have it happen. It's happening in 4 weeks. If you're in the area, or if you want to fly in, if you're listening and you're a real estate admin, you could have any title in real estate. I have 3 spaces left to come during the day and be a part of it. So let me know if you're interested. This retreat is always a very special experience. It's not a retreat where we talk about databases and drip campaigns and all the different aspects that go into the day in, day out of being a real estate operations professional. It's about personal and professional development and taking it to the next level, working on leadership skills, all those other things, the drip campaigns, the database work, the events that are just part of the reality of the job. They do get talked about between sessions, and you end up building a massive network that can help you with all of those things outside of the retreat. So this was the cancellation and the rebirth. Not at all what I envisioned it to be, and yet I went with the flow. I went with the next step, and this is what happened. So we do so many things in life, like I talked about at the beginning of this episode, due to fear. We want this cushion, we want this security blanket of the right amount of finances. And I often talk to people about, how much money would you need to have to feel safe? Is there a number you can put on it? Because when I think about it, I can't really put a number to it, because we can't have any idea what may happen in our life, what events may happen, if health issues come up. And so what I've noticed is that it's this false security. We think that having a certain amount of money is going to make us safe. And the truth is, if you want real security, real true peace, it happens in the unseen. It happens in this space in between. And so all of you have different stories from my story. That's the beauty of how unique we all are. And I know that you have had moments where you're sitting in that in-between spot, that spot between when you got a paycheck 2 weeks ago maybe, and the next one's still coming up, but you need money for something else. You're in that in-between spot. And the next time you approach that spot, all I'm asking is that you pause for a bit longer than you normally do. Sit in that uncomfortable place, sit in that discomfort. And when you get inspired action, when you get an idea, follow that idea and see what happens. So it doesn't mean you sit in inaction and you let things just come to you. But when you get an idea, for like the example I just gave you of with the retreat, my idea was cancel it and announce it and put it on my social media. That idea led to Tori reaching out to me. If I hadn't posted about it, he may not have done that. So it's just the next step. Pause in the discomfort. Know that what's supposed to happen next, that idea will come to you, that step will come to you. And stop listening to all of the outside voices. Take the time to hear yourself. Now, if you have kids, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Margaret, this all sounds just great, but I have kids. I have mouths to feed. They have to have dentist appointments. They've got school. They've got, different activities for school that they want to do that all cost money. I absolutely understand that. And if you were sitting across from me right now, I would sit, I would listen, and hopefully help you feel seen. And then I would ask you a question. Have you tried? Have you really tried it yet? Have you tried to sit in that discomfort? Because so often I talk to parents and people who do things that they believe is best for their kids, when really it's because it relieves their fear for a moment. It takes them out of that discomfort for a moment until it's back. And so I really want to encourage you to get uncomfortable today and lean in and follow what lights you up, because that is the only way that you're truly going to be able to experience the support that's out there and the way that the universe will set things up to happen for you. So to end this podcast episode today, I want to pull a card for you all from my Super Attractor deck by Gabby Bernstein. I love this deck. There's a lot of different affirmations and messages. And so wherever you're at today, whatever day it is that you listen to this episode, I want you to take this message and intentionally focus on it for your day. And let me know what happens, right? Reach out to me You can work with me in a number of different ways. If you're interested in coaching with me on a regular basis, I have monthly coaching, 3-month and 6-month contracts. I do workshops with teams and companies. I also will do individual retreats, or if you want to retreat for your team or company, there are lots of different ways that we can work together, right? All right, so our card for today is, my greatest spiritual shifts don't come through force, they come through freedom. I love that. My greatest spiritual shifts don't come through force, they come through freedom. Thank you guys so much for listening to my first solo episode. It brings me so much joy to hear from you and get messages from you. So please reach out to me through Instagram, through Facebook, through my email, my website, iloveitwhen.org. I would love to hear from you. And if you have future topics that you'd like me to talk about, please let me know. All right, catch you soon.